All right, now, you know what time it is, man. It is Monday night. I'm Kardell Sims, your host. We got another episode of the re-entry journey, and tonight I would like to present our guest and welcome our guest, Miss Sheena Renea. She's going to tell us all about her story, her journey before, during, and after prison. Very interesting story. I can't wait to hear it. So let's tune in and let's make this happen. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Sheena Renea. I did 25 years in prison. I had life without parole at one point, and it was overturned, and I was released 3 years ago.
Right. So how did you end up in the I'm talking about 25, man. That's a you talking about getting something up off your back. That's a gorilla, getting a gorilla off your back. How did you come to the point to where you got? How did you get 25 years life in prison? How did that come about?
Well, it actually started when I just turned 15. I met a man that was almost 21 years old, and I became a child bride. And I married a man that was abusive mentally, sexually, emotionally, and physically. After 2 years of marriage, restraining orders, finally got a divorce, I still could not escape. And I met another guy, and he killed my ex-husband, and I was the accessory to the murder.
Oh, wow. Right.
So at barely 17 years old, one of the last incidents I share with people is that he took me to the woods with a gun and said he was going to kill me. And so 2 weeks later, or about 3 weeks later, is when he died.
Oh, wow. So you a child going into prison.
I was just turned 17 years old.
17 years old. Going right into prison. So what was that like at 17, walking into a prison with not just going to prison, but with a life sentence?
With life without parole. I was actually sentenced, the judge sentenced me to death by incarceration.
Wow.
And so, of course, at 17, your mind cannot even wrap around what that could mean. And then as I got to prison, I got really lucky because a lot of people go through a lot more troubles when they first go. But I had a bunkmate that was like, hey, I'm here. You got a lot of time. And she was an OG. We call them OGs.
Right.
And, this was back in 1992. So that's, you had the real OGs back in the prison.
Yeah.
And she took me underneath her wing, and she schooled me. She's like, this is what we do in prison. This is how we respect people. This is how you hustle. This is what you got to do. And she taught me the rules of the game. And that's how I started my prison time. I was scared at 17 going into adult prison. I mean, you hear about cell block H, and all those things. And I remember my mom was like, did they put you in prison with murderers? And I was like, Mom, yeah. I mean, I'm here with check writers all the way to, somebody who was there for cannibalism. So, I mean, in prison, you have an array of people. And I just happened to get around the OGs that schooled me, and they felt sorry for me as a kid. And that doesn't happen for a lot, because I've seen a lot of other teenagers come in and bad things have happened. So I was lucky.
So you're in there at 17 years old. The OGs took you under your wing, schooled you, this is what prison about, this is the do's, this is the don't get yourself caught up in this, and years is going by and you're getting older. And when was it that you started fighting back on your case?
Well, of course, the public pretender I had started the first initial appeal, but then we all know how that goes.
Right.
And so those same OGs started teaching me. They're like, you need to live in the law library, and you need to learn every law and everything that can pertain to you. And so my first few years, that's where I stayed. I stayed in that law library, and I learned how to shepherdize, how to find what I needed for my case. And I didn't get an attorney until 15 years in to help me. I had filed all my appeals. I lost every single appeal in a 3-year period, which is pretty quick for anybody that knows about prison. That's a fast appeal process. And there was nothing. And so, but I just kept fighting. I never gave up. I finally, my first 10 years, I mean, they schooled me, but I was a heathen, 17 years old, and I was mad, in and out of the hole. And I thought I had life without parole. I had nothing to lose anyway. So my first 10 years were pretty difficult. I made it difficult on myself. Okay. So, but I spent my time fighting on my case. And when I lost all my appeals, I lost all hope. And it was a really dark place for a long time inside prison. Right.
So you get this time, you went through your appeals in the fastest record in history. Because when I was in prison, just to get through one appeal, it took about 5 years. Mm-hmm. By the time I got to the second one, I was almost home.
Yeah.
So, you go through.
I was like record speed.
Right. So you go through that, and you just like back against the wall, and like you said, there's no hope. But during the time you were spending in the library, in the law library, researching your case and learning things, was that kind of like a growth process for you as well? Even though you still was a heathen, you still was, young and in trouble, but was that putting some growth on you as well, though?
It did. And I'll never forget, there was a captain that was there one day, and he pulled me in the office, and it was a life-changing moment. I had many life-changing moments in prison. I think we all do, if we allow them to happen. But he set me down one day, and he finally said, I will always win, and you will always lose. No matter if I'm even wrong, I will still win. You will go to the hole. You're the one that's not going to get any privileges. I still go home every day. Because I fought against the staff a lot, because who are they to, especially, try to tell me what to do all the time, and because teenage mindset, and that impacted me quite deeply. And then I ended up taking a class in 2004 called Impact of Victims of Crime.
ICVC.
Yes. And so that class, they brought a victim in, and listening to that victim was my life-changing moment. Right. Then I realized it wasn't about me. And it wasn't even about my victim. It was about the victims that created in my choices. And that class, as soon as I took it, I turned around, became a facilitator, and that class changed my life.
I think that's one of the most powerful classes that you have in prison.
Yes.
Especially when you have no understanding of the victim's side at all. Like I took the class, I was just like, I didn't have no, what? And, and then you start learning about the victims in different types of crime. You're like, well, yeah. I was selling drugs, you know what I'm saying? I was just gang. I didn't really have no victims. And then you start learning it gives you a different outlook on the victims, and you be like, man, I really was tripping. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's one of the most powerful courses. I took it. I had it when I was in prison too. ICVC. I think they brought the dogs in. I think they bring the dogs in with you in y'all class. They let somebody come in with the dogs.
I was a master dog trainer in the prison.
Oh, okay.
So I would take my dogs to my classes. We had puppies for parole in our prison.
Oh, okay.
So, but the dogs definitely does help people that are closed off a lot, open emotionally a little more. But teaching the class even and going through different aspects of people not realizing they have victims, or having to really show people the victimization that our choices have on people. Still to this day, it doesn't matter if you committed your crime like me almost 30 years ago. My family still feels some of the effects of that.
Oh yeah, true indeed. Yeah, true indeed. So you read out appeals. You learned one lesson from the CO. You learned another valuable big lesson with the ICVC. When did you start seeing some light when it started coming to your case? Because you still got life without parole. What did the judge say? Sending you to death in prison.
Well, in 2004, I became a certified personal trainer and nutritionist in the prison. And I started teaching aerobics and classes and stuff like that in there. But as that started happening, I decided between ICVC and that was the time I decided, even if I never get out of prison, I'm going to be the most successful inmate. And I'm going to try to help everybody else coming in and out of here not to come back. So that became a new goal. So if I'm going to die here, I want to make an impact. And it was 2007. Of course, I got saved and I started seeing light and I started fighting again. And then I got an attorney. And that attorney, at first, we didn't really have money to give him. And I just kept putting my faith, in my higher power. And he took my case pro bono. And then that's when things started rolling. But in 2012, anybody under the age of 18 could not be sentenced to life without parole.
Okay.
And that's what opened the door for me.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you got the lawyer. So you getting from your work, you starting to get the blessings, which, starting to see the light. And I'm glad that you said that even though before you even seen the light, you already made your mind up. Like, this is what if I'm going to be here, I'm going to be the most successful inmate or offender, whatever it was that there is, why is it important to start building a plan while you're incarcerated? Because you had every reason not to build a plan. You know what I'm saying? Look, I'm here for the rest of my life, man. I'm all exhausted. I can just really start gelling for real. Just don't even care. But you had a vision for yourself. Why is it important because they say re-entry starts the day that you enter prison. And from the steps that you took, like when you went in there, you got in the law library, even though you might have been doing some other stuff, but that was a big step for you. Then, you started you got the ICVC classes, then you started doing the aerobics. So you really was preparing yourself, you say, to be the most successful person if you never got out. But if you happen to get out, you would be able to carry this same type of growth with you out the door. So why was it important to do that?
I think it's important. One, change is important. Whatever brought you to prison, you don't want to keep being that same person. One, we leave an array of victims behind, whether it's your family, other families, the communities. And a mindset is important not only for reentry, it's to get through it, through everyday life. And as soon as you get in prison, you have choices from day one. I can either listen to the COs or I don't have to. But you learn that consequences follow every choice. It could be a good consequence. It can be a negative consequence. But there's a consequence that's going to follow. Every action is a reaction. And I had to bump my head a lot before I realized that, there was another way. But I think when I decided that I wanted to be more successful is because I had a heart to help people. And I had hurt so many along the way. It was a way for me to give back, even if it was inside the community of the prison.
Right.
It was a way for me to become a better person and to help other people hopefully become better people. Okay. Does that make sense? That makes sense at all.
So your lawyer comes to you one day and he says, you know what, hey, look like we might be able to get you up out of here, get that life without parole off your back. What was that feeling? What was them thoughts?
Well, I got excited, and then we got to the courthouse to get my sentence, a renewed sentence. And in that moment, I was getting ready to sign the paper, and they pulled the paper off the desk, and they changed their mind at the last moment because my victim said no.
Oh, wow.
And so that was 2012, and I was shattered. And I remember walking back in the jail cell, and I remember somebody had wrote real big on the jail. It said, "Lean not up on your understanding, trust the Lord with all your heart." And I thought, God must want me to go back there for some reason. And so for 5 more years, we sit and we fought. And a little bit more about my story. When I was in county jail, I was raped by a jailer. And that county jail covered it up. And they promoted the officer. They locked me down. It was just a bunch of stuff. 17 years later, that came back up. And they found it on videotapes. And so that my lawyer started using that to help me get back to the prosecutors. Right. And So that's how my door started really opening. They started using that, and then my co-defendants recanted their statements. My old lawyer finally came ahead to us and said, I had her case 2 weeks before her trial. I didn't even know what I was doing. I was a new public defender. I didn't even know the case entirely before we tried it. And I had a prosecutor from Jeff City, the bigwig prosecutor, and this very first time public defender trying to defend a murder case. So all these things piled up, and then they found the restraining orders, the abuse. And so all those things happened. And then my lawyer finally came one day and he said, you're going to get out. And that's when I was like, I'll believe it when you give me paperwork.
Right. Because last time I just knew I was going to get out, hey, boy, I got hit with a heartbreaker for the second time in this trip. Like, that's, man, to be right there and like it's just snatched away from you.
Yeah.
So you're going through these emotions. This is a roller coaster ride, and you after what you did was you almost like, you know what, this ain't gonna happen. After it was on the table and it got pulled off at the last minute, it was just like, man, that's it.
Yeah.
Your lawyer comes say, I'm gonna get you out. Then you get out. What was what was going through your mind when you knew when you signed the paper or whatever happened to know that you was getting out, that you was getting released?
Well, when they came, they finally gave me a new face sheet, and I seen my new sentence on there. Right. Then I was kind of like, okay, maybe this is real. And then they called me to the IPO and gave me a home plan. Now I'm letting it set in that I'm going home. And they at our prison in Chillicothe, they always let you kind of pick a CO that you want to walk home. So one of the CEOs said, the only way you'll ever go home, Sheena, is through a pine box. Mm-hmm. And so when they said, who do you want to walk you out? I said, Lieutenant such and such.
That's right. That's right. Oh, yeah.
I want him to walk me out because it's not a pine box. I was so excited that I remember just palms sweaty, heart racing, because all of a sudden I'm not dying anymore. I'm getting out. And boy, did I have lofty ideas about the world, but we'll get there. But it was such an overwhelming feeling, like almost like I didn't deserve it, but I couldn't wait for it. It was such a hard fight, and it was almost like it wasn't real. And I remember my mom picked me up. We finally got out of the prison. And I remember, when you go on out count, you're shackled, you're black boxed, and I remember there's a stoplight right outside our prison. And I thought, if I ever get out, I'm going to get out of the car and run around the car at the stoplight when I get out. And that is, my mom's like, I just opened the door and I just started running around the car screaming, I'm free. And she's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm free.
Right. See and understand it.
Yeah. But there's when the real roller coaster started, because we learned to live in prison by rules and structures and what we got to do. And then when you get out, that's where my struggle really started.
Right. So before we get on to getting out, I got to ask, because man, what was going through your head as the guy was walking with you out the thing? The one that said the only way you gonna go, what you ain't say nothing to him?
I did. I was like, look at that pine box. He didn't say nothing, not a word. So like, you deserve it. Congratulations. Of course they try to fix it then. But when you're in prison, we know some of them COs, they like to, nudge that in you. And it was a very difficult, but it felt so good for that to be the person that walked me out. Because I remember when he said that to me, it devastated me. I remember sitting in my cell that night going, wow, and maybe I am going to die here. And this was after, a while. And so it had took a toll on my spiritual, mental, emotional. And so it was a little bit of revenge I felt for him to walk out.
Yeah, I think it was too. So you get out. You say this is where the real roller coasters. You went in early '90s, very beginning of the '90s. Now you in the mid 2000s. What was that like?
2017. Well, we didn't have cell phones, we didn't have internet, we didn't have any of that. And at first coming out, it was exciting. You're excited. And I even first off the bat, my mom took me to a gas station, and I couldn't decide what I wanted. Already, I have choices. I haven't had choices really to have what I wanted for 25 years. The color, it was so bright, I immediately got a headache. Prison's very drab and grayish and dark, and all those bright colors it was a lot for me to take in. And then just trying to learn, she handed me this black thing, it kept vibrating, and I was like, what is this? And of course you see commercials and you see that, but I didn't know how to answer it. I didn't know what to do. So from scratch, I had to learn everything. And when you first get out, you're in honeymoon stage. You're so excited. I got out the day before Thanksgiving. And mine was a little struggle because I went home after 25 years, and here was a room full of people I didn't even know waiting on me when I walked through a door. And I got really overwhelmed because I felt I just left my family, and these were strangers I was looking at.
Exactly.
They were all excited to see me, but I was just missing my family I just left behind.
Right. So you out, people you ain't never met before. You trying to get adjusted to the fact that you can make your own decisions and choices on what it is that you want to eat or where you want to go. Then adjusting to the technology and how fast the world is moving. I mean, because in prison, we everyday routine. You pretty much know what you're gonna do. Now you're out and things is fast. I mean, it's a big difference between 1990 and 2017.
Oh yeah.
Like you said, you went to you went to the store when you first got out, and you didn't even really know what you wanted. So did you suffer with a lot of anxiety when you first got out?
A lot of anxiety. And I tell a story when my mom took me to Walmart and somebody ran into me, and I turned around ready to be like, what's up? And I had to learn that's not how we respond out here either. Because in prison, when people test you or show, as we call it, shoulder check and so out here, people are so rude and disrespectful a lot of times. And in prison, it's about respect and loyalty. And so trying to learn that that's not how it works out here was difficult. Learning that the technology, how quickly it can just go south. Choices was really hard for me. I ate chicken strips and hamburgers my first 6 months. And I remember my boyfriend took me to Subway, and I really got upset and basically almost had a panic attack and anxiety, because all of a sudden I'm standing here and I have to make this whole sandwich and I don't even know what I like yet. So I got really upset. Like, why did you bring me here? At least Pizza Hut, I knew I could order a pizza, but Subway, I had to build a sandwich that I didn't even know.
You build it. Right. And a lot of people don't realize that when someone does a lot of time like that, that just the little bitty things that it's nothing to them is a whole lot to a person who's been incarcerated for a long period of time. What was it like? Now you're out, you got to have a job. You don't have no work. Like, you went to prison when you was a teenager, when you was a child, and or now you're out, so you don't have no work history. So what was that like, trying to find and get a job now that you're home?
Everywhere you go is no, and especially with the kind of charge I had. I'm still on parole, so I have to say, hey, I'm still on parole, and my supervisor. It took me day 2. I started trying to work, and I got a couple jobs here and there, but then you don't last very long once they figure out the felony or They find it just seemed very difficult. And I came back to the town that it happened in. So everybody knew who I was, what happened. So as soon as I would call somebody, it'd be like, I'm Sheena. I can even hear the tone in their voice change. And same as when my driver's license, the highway patrol woman that got in there when I took my driver's test, she said my name very snotty. I know who you are. I failed my driver's test because complete anxiety took over. And I didn't turn on one turn signal during the whole driver's test. So I
yeah, he was like, oh no, you forgot all about the turn signal and everything. Yeah, you know, but that could do that. You know, I'm pretty sure where you come from, it probably was in the newspaper that you had gotten released. So everybody know. Everybody had their certain feelings, no matter what. If you was a highway patrol, whether you was the boss of a company, you already had your feelings about me getting out. You didn't want me out.
Yeah.
And that was showing. And
well,
how did you?
I finally had to go all the way to Arkansas to get a job.
I was about to say, so how did you cope with that? You just ended up having to go somewhere else?
Yep. I lived 45 minutes from Arkansas. So I ended up going and I walked in this gym because I'm a personal trainer. And I asked the guy, you know, hey, and he said, I don't care who you were yesterday. What can you do for me today?
Right.
And I worked there for 2 years, but I made a lot of mistakes also at that job. And it was just conflict of interest sometimes. And I realized also now that I was in prison, I don't have to let people talk to me any kind of way anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but I ended up relocating and coming back to my hometown. And so I left that job. And for 2 years, I couldn't even get a job at Burger King. I couldn't get a job anywhere. And then the pandemic hit and it was really bad because now they definitely don't want to hire a felon. There's lots of other people that are more, you know, who are out of work. Mm-hmm. So they're definitely going to come first. And that rejection takes a toll on a person eventually. You know, when you can't get hired at a fast food joint, you're thinking, and the conviction happened almost 30 years ago. And it still followed. I finally got a job and started this week, which is so funny because I work for ADT Security now, but I couldn't work for Burger King, you know, 3 months ago.
Right. So you going through a lot of no's, and I would think, like you said, it happened so long ago that some of these people wouldn't even, you would think they might not even know. Like, you know, how did you know this? You might not even been born, or you know, you still dwelling on this. What caused you? What was in it for you not to just give up and revert to criminality every time them doors kept getting slammed in your face once you got out?
To me, that wasn't an option because I didn't want to go back. Right. Because going back is not an option to me. And so even though I got very frustrated, I actually, lucky in that area too, I've got a boyfriend who did 2 deployments in Iraq. And so he had his own PTSD and anxiety, and he had learned to deal with that. So he was helping me learn my coping mechanisms when things would happen. And so when that rejection would happen, or, you know, any of that things, he would talk to me and be like, it's just going to take time. Just don't give up. You got this. But I've had nights where I was suicidal because going back to prison wasn't an option. But driving my car in front of another car, or off a ditch, that was becoming an option. And finally, we were sitting here one day, and I was like, you know what? Prison did not break me. And that's all of a sudden, it was like light bulbs just started going on. And I thought, I'm not the only one. I can't be the only one. And so I started the group Prison Did Not Break Me. And I started getting so much support that I finally realized that I can't give up because there's a bunch of us. We just need to support each other.
Exactly. Yeah, I love the group Prison Did Not Break Me. I think that is real important because I've seen prison break people to the point where either they don't know nothing else, and so they go back until they're not getting back out, or the experience inside of prison literally changed who they were for the worse, and mentally they're not there no more. Like in prison, let's just be honest. Like when I was in prison, I see guys that had so much time that they would just take pills, be in the med call just to escape the reality of their time. And then 6 months to a year, they don't even know their name or nothing. They're just walking around like zombies. You know?
Yeah, me too.
And then some of those do get out. And I've seen people that didn't even have a lot of time, that would still do the same thing. So that's a part of being broken by prison as well. Not having no goals, getting out and just being stuck. That's part of letting prison break you. So I really like the idea, the community of behind prison didn't break me. I think that's who you are, your story. I think that's your brand. I think that's your next move. With me, also think on the business level as well. I think that's the perfect brand for you and your story behind it. You was talking about how when you was in Walmart, somebody bumped you, and how long did it take you to de-institutionalize yourself once you got out of prison?
Well, I mean, there was lots of things. I left water running. I would say wash the water when I flushed the toilet for a long time. So I slept on the floor a lot because the beds were too soft. So it took probably a good 6 months just for those things to kind of start. But even sometimes I still do stuff that was such a habit.
Wash the water.
Yeah.
My boyfriend was in the shower the other day, and I went in there and flushed the toilet. I said, "Wash the water," and I said, "I'm sorry." It's so ingrained in you that there's moments it just comes out, or I get frustrated because I go to a place and I don't know how to turn on the soda a certain way, or I can't figure out how they flush their toilets, or first time I stood up on a toilet and it flushed, I was like, "Whoa!" I thought I was being attacked in the bathroom. I didn't know what was going on.
Right. Yeah, it's just a whole other day. They flush by themselves as soon as you get up. And what's going on here?
Yeah.
Relationship wise, how long did it take for you to get in a relationship once that you're out? I knew, sometimes, like when I do a lot of re-entry coaching, I always tell people, take about 6 months and a year before you even start thinking about dating, because you already got these pressures of what you got to deal with once you get out of prison. Yeah. You don't want to take on the pressure of a relationship, even though you may not think it's going to be pressure, but the fact that, sometimes relationships become demanding, and it might not be a lot of demands, but it might not be something that you will be able to fulfill at the time because you're still trying to get yourself and your life back on point.
Right.
So how long was it before you started dating again?
I think probably about 7 months after I was out. I didn't get serious. We dated a little bit, and it took us a while before we actually got more serious and getting to know each other. But I was lucky, like I said, because being a veteran, coming from war and coming from prison isn't quite different. I mean,
right.
We have so many similarities, and in that he saved my life, I feel like, in a lot of times. But I definitely don't recommend getting into relationships right when you get out. You have to figure out who you are out here, because in prison, especially doing a long time, if you're a lifer or a long timer, you learn yourself, you learn who you are, your purpose in prison. When I got out, I had no purpose, and we laugh about it, but everybody knew who I was in prison. I was like Beyonce in prison. And I got out, and everybody loved me, and I helped people, and this is what I did. I was involved in everything. I get out. Who am I? What is my purpose? And now, what do I do with myself? Because now I'm just known as this person who went to prison for murder. So I'm back with all the stigma. In prison, everybody's there for a crime, so you're accepted.
Right.
When you get out, and it's the opposite. So you have to find your purpose in what am I here for? What am I supposed to be doing now? And until you kind of start getting that grounded, you definitely want to be in a relationship, because if you don't know yourself and your purpose and what you want, how are you going to know how to be in a relationship with somebody else?
Exactly. True indeed. So you started this new job, you know. Like you said, you couldn't get hired at fast food, but the security, ADT got you. You know what I'm saying? So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
What do you see for yourself within the next 3 to 5 years?
Well, I graduated esthetician school when I came home, but I'm also getting my business administration, my bachelor's in business administration online. I have a book coming out. It's supposed to have been out, but it's been a process of trying to get it out. It's called Prison Etiquette. Don't take the chips. You know how they tell you don't take cigarettes, don't take the chips. So I'm finessing that book. It's really not the book of my story yet, but it's the book of when people go to prison, the rules that you should follow, as well as you know. You better follow our rules before you ever thought about following the COs.
Exactly. Right. Yeah.
And so I kind of break down what happens in prison and the rules and stuff that people take for granted. Like, don't clip your toenails on the top bunk if I'm eating my ramen on the bottom.
Exactly.
They get you beat up in prison. You know, they get you snatched off the bed.
Yeah, most definitely.
So I see myself with that book published and out of school, and prison did not break me. We're turning it to a nonprofit that takes a process, you know, with the paperwork and things like that. I really want to have houses that long-timers that can't be paroled because they're violent offenders.
Mm-hmm.
I got one guy in my group that, you know, I'll just use an example. He done a long time, and every halfway house doesn't want him because he was a violent offender. And we want to be a house where we do take those people. But also, the goal is to have prison did not break me. Go back into prisons talking to people coming out of prison. I don't think that people go in prisons, they give you all these ideas, and we need to give them the realities of what's going to happen when you come out. What's really going to happen is you're going to have anxiety. What's really going to happen is you're going to have a lot of no's. And because I was never taught that on my way out the door. We want to prepare people when they come out. So we want to eventually learn to go into caseworkers, IPOs, start working with them, to work with the offender before they come home. But not only the offender, we want to have a curriculum and classes, or our team member goes and meets with the family. Hey, this is what you can expect. These are triggers. These are things to avoid. These are things that are helpful. Prepare the family that they're being paroled to, as well as the offender coming out. That is what we're on 5 years with prison did not break. We want to help the family and the offender, because no support, they go back.
Yeah.
And so we want to stop the recidivism rates from being so high. We want to change the stigma. Everybody in prison is not bad. We just made a bad choice. And we just need some support and help along the way, and be better people.
Right, true indeed. I most definitely agree. That's a similar mission that I'm on as well. I really enjoyed your story. I think there's so much more that's going to come along with this story. Prison did not break me. It's powerful.
Thank you.
I just can't wait to see, you know, the other side of it, you know, and where it can go. I appreciate you coming on, sharing your story with us.
Yep.
The reentry support group is always a group for you.
Yes.
Just like I know Prison Did Not Break Me is always a group for me. Anytime you need something or any way I can help with my knowledge and expertise, don't be afraid to reach out at all. Or if somebody in our group can help, reach out. You know, once again, thank you for coming on. Really enjoyed it. Any last words? What would you tell someone that just got out today? What would you tell them?
Take a deep breath. Don't rush anything. Take it one day at a time. And to remember to never let your past define your future.
There it is right there. I'd like to thank you for coming on again. Everyone, if you're just now tuning in or you just getting in, our guest today is Miss Sheena Renea. Prison did not break me. Make sure you go back and check out this interview and listen to her story. You can find it in this group. You can find it. It'll be on YouTube or it'll be on my Spotify podcast as well, The Re-Entry Journey. Thanks again for joining us. I appreciate you accepting the invitation. And I'm gonna see you on the other side.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. You have a great night.
You too.
All right.